Welcome to the CGIAR Periscope Live interview series from GCARD3, the third global conference on agricultural research for development, which is happening this week in Johannesburg, South Africa. My name is Sara Quinn, and I'm the communication specialist for the International Potato Centre based in Nairobi, Kenya. And I'm joined here by Adiel Mbabu, the regional director for the International Potato Centre in Sub-Saharan Africa. So Adiel, thank you very much for joining us today and for participating in the interview. Can I ask you to just firstly introduce yourself and to tell us a little bit about what SIP is doing with potato and sweet potato in Africa?
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. My name, as you said, is Adiel Mbabu, Regional Director for Sub-Saharan Africa. And what is SIP doing with potato and sweet potato? A lot of things SIP is doing, but perhaps to focus on two main areas that we are focusing currently, the orange flesh sweet potato work with the interest of getting addressing vitamin A deficiency in the continent. And a second piece of work that we are looking at, focusing on potato program to address seed bottlenecks. As you may know, potato doesn't do very well without very good seed, and the market for the seed, potato seed, is challenging. So we are looking to how we can create or strengthen the seed systems to address that bottleneck. So those two things perhaps, just to highlight the two, but there is a lot more going. If you need more details, we can discuss. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you, Adiel. Just to pick up on one of the key issues that we're hearing about at GCARD, which is scaling up, and which is one of the priorities for SIP. Can you share with us some of your thoughts and reflections on the challenges of scaling up, and perhaps give an example from SIP?
Yes. Scaling up is certainly very topical now, and for very good reasons. A lot of what research organizations such as SIP have succeeded in doing is, for various reasons, we are very successful at reaching out pilot successes. Fewer and fewer people, because we get funded with small projects, relatively small projects with relatively short time frames. So we are very successful at achieving impact at relatively small scale. But the question is, to what extent can we actually reach the general population of all those people who need this kind of support? For example, vitamin A deficiency is very widespread in the continent. So the challenge for us is, if we have found a solution for the few that we've reached, how can we reach all those who need that support in the entire continent? That is a daunting challenge, given the resources available to us, the capacity we have. And so we are then trying to figure out how to create necessary partnerships that can help us spread out this technology to all those who need. But as you can imagine, many of those institutions that we reach out to are themselves limited in their own capacities. So we are having to focus on capacity building to ensure that as we count on them along the value chains, they've got the capacity to carry through those messages. And also considering that a lot of these institutions depend on supportive policies. We are also focusing a lot on engaging policy processes so that we can influence policymakers to provide the necessary policy infrastructural support and to the extent possible the resources necessary, because scaling up is really talking about a population, and that's large. You really need our own national investment process and national commitment to this. So you not only require policy support, you also need the capacities to go with it. So we are finding SIP's work moving, spreading out from previously very technology-based, science-based, into more into also capacities and policy engagement. And I think in that way we can hopefully aspire to reach the scale that can reach all the population that we target. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Adiel. I think another term which is talked about a lot is agricultural innovation. Maybe you could give us another example from SIP's work in Sub-Saharan Africa around agricultural innovation. It sounds like orange flesh sweet potato might be one of those things that you could talk about a bit more.
Yes, I think in many ways we've talked a lot about technology, and yes, technology is an interesting innovation, but it's argued that it is not an innovation until someone makes good use of it. And so when you think of it that way, you need many series of innovations to reach the kind of results you're looking for. That's why, for example, in thinking of the orange flesh sweet potato and thinking how to reach as many as the population we are targeting, we recognize that we have to link those who are producing the sweet potato with those who are processing it, with those who are distributing it, with those who are consuming it. Now, all those are areas of innovation that we have to get the people involved to understand what their role would be to ensure that the process runs that of supply and demand. And therefore, that then identifies the different types of innovations, looking at those areas of innovation that we require to orchestrate for the processes to run in a way that drives, as I say, demand and therefore supply, and ultimately reach the optimal levels that reaches the population you're talking about. Thank you.
Thinking a little bit more broadly, can you maybe reflect on what you see as some of the key priorities in Africa that will help us remain focused on future impact? So maybe for SIP, but also more broadly just for agriculture in Africa.
That's a good question, Sarah. What priorities would we need to address for scaling up to occur? As I said a little earlier, we really need to have a supportive policy environment. That is a war area that is not traditionally in the remit of agricultural research. You could say institutions like IFPRI and a few other policy institutions have been doing policy analysis. But the extent to which that policy analysis translates into the necessary engagement that inform, catalyze, facilitate policy-making processes, that we've done not as well. So to me, that is really an area of priority we need to think through, because if we get supportive policy environment, that means that we can then get the resourcing necessary into the institutions that we require to move the technologies up to the population level, to the scales we are looking to. And so the second area is really capacity building. In SIP, we are increasingly interested in getting capacities along the value chain, both the sweet potato and the potato program that we are working on, working on ways to finding institutions that we can partner with so that we can get capacities built along those value chains to ensure the vibrancy necessary to get the ideas flow from production to consumption. What am I saying then is that whereas we have several technologies that are proven and ready to go, the greater challenge and the priority areas of priority is getting to work harder at policy processes and work harder at institutional capacities. We've done a lot of capacities at the individual level. The question is how we get these very competent individuals working in institutional systems that really harness the entire innovation system that is required to drive the scaling up process. Thank you.
Thank you, Adiel. Just as a final question, equitable access and engagement of women in science is very important. Can you share with us some ways that SIP is working to engage and support women, both in science, but also in research and more broadly in agriculture?
Very good question. One of the things I really like about SIP as an organization is the way it has been very sensitive to achieving a gender balance. I have seen two of our director generals now, Barbara the second and Pamela the previous, putting a lot of focus in the recruitment process, in the retainment process, the incentives to retain and the incentives to grow both genders. I've seen statistics improve from relatively low proportions of women if you look at an organization on the whole. And now as you look at it, we are almost reaching 50-50 to a large extent. This is because there has been a very conscious policy decision to ensure that there is a gender balance in not only recruitment but also in retaining. This is for very good reasons. Both genders bring different strengths, if you like, and complement each other very well. And so the extent to which we build the capacity of a balanced gender relations is the extent to which we can then reflect that energy into the population that is also requiring a similar balance. We've been in the past criticized as researchers when it was male dominated, that how do we expect for the male-centered scientist institutions reaching out to an agriculture-based society in Africa where most of the producers were women, and to what extent then would we really understand their needs, understand their limitations, understand their potentials without a fair access to all the dimensions. And I think with that concern, the commitment we have to get that balance right is a healthy one, and I would hope that we continue to sustain the same spirit and become even stronger into the future. Thank you.
Great. Well, I think the time out to participate in the interview, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week at GCARD3.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you.
I appreciate the opportunity.